Not North America, not South America, not Africa, not Asia, but Europe instead. This is an impression of a huge waterfall that flooded in from the Atlantic Ocean 5.5 million years ago. As David Attenborough in his book The First Eden explains, about 50 times higher than Niagara, and it probably extended horizontally for many miles too, filling a vast empty trench in the Earth's crust. This amazing cataract continued to fall for a century or so, until at last the basin was filled and the Mediterranean had been formed. And wildlife swam in to hunt its fertile waters. And people farmed crops and animals. They fished the new sea using traditional methods, and they used the shore for pleasure more and more. So by now the ancient Mediterranean is looking very different at the hand of man. We'll see how, why and when, and what's coming next in the collision and conflict over what was, and maybe still is, a beautiful place. Bluefin tuna, called the Porsche of the sea, huge, fast, and in the past overfished, but now surprisingly appearing in British waters where their future conservation is vital. From Spain right across to Israel, every summer we see one of the biggest human migrations of all. Anywhere, and many of them come by air, but that could change as we'll see. Some say aviation is facing its sunset with all that goes with it. Tourism and wildlife, for example, and some quite rare, like this Audouin skull. More and more fossil fuels going up in smoke, or CO2, carbon dioxide. More runways around the world are not always popular, probably affecting the weather up there. Or even worldwide, hurricanes, floods and fires, bad for business.
No third runway!
Why?
Romilly, well, tonight the protesters have pretty much occupied the BAA's car parks here. It's all pretty good-natured, though. The police were taking no chances.
Hurricane emergency. Jamaica's fearful wait as Hurricane Dean gathers pace and sweeps towards its coastline. Tourists are fleeing the country. Locals are stocking up with...
What does she look forward to? Will the coast be clear of people, Or is it just the climate? No problem for the cow and calf. Domestic animals have shared the meadlands for ages, literally. Goats are good news, up to a point that is, but when they get up into the trees and feed there, that's bad news for the trees, and the shepherd too. Whole landscapes may become overgrazed, treeless deserts. Goats eat almost anything, especially if it comes from that mighty hand of man. And down the tarmac road were to come llamas, which bred and spat if they felt like it. Introduced species, both on land and underwater, have changed the face of the Mediterranean, affecting not only plants but the insects that depend on them, like the painted lady butterfly, a truly international traveller, a kind of pretty tourist. Flowers, not Coca-Cola, are vital for their existence. Red admirals, brimstones decorate the bushes. Whereas down below a very small predator is hunting. Well, sort of. The red-legged partridges have been introduced for hunting. No wonder she's rather nervous. Whether it's hunting with dogs or guns, traditions still are very much alive in the wilder areas. Down there may be tourist flights arriving, hotels filling up. Up there, it's camouflage kit, dogs, and a shot wild boar, gun belts, a welcome meal of wild pork, apparently very tasty. Whether it's dead stock or livestock, man and his animals have been the backbone, the shaping of this region. Trees with acorns to eat, plus water to drink, provided and naturally. Here it's as much the hand of man as the snout of a pig. It's an adaptable tool for many jobs, tough and flexible. It can graze, browse and dig. Though like the goats, too much can lead to problems, as around this waterhole, becoming a dust bowl too. But there's still enough of a pond to offer a place for a large dragonfly to lay her eggs. And another fly scoots by. Water striders dent the surface with their tiptoes, reflecting the sun, which will be such a vital part of our story for wildlife and people alike. Feeding their young at the nest burrow and always looking out for insect prey are bee-eaters, which eat all sorts of insects, be it bees or dragonflies from the pond. Wherever there's water, there's life, with insects even more so, such as a busy pair of Sardinian warblers, sharing duties in a fence. And what goes in must come out. Lizards don't miss much. Their business is spotting insect food rather than sheep. Yes, what goes in must come out, though this smells more like grass than insect droppings. That could be a good news for the dung beetles who collect the stuff and rear their young in it. But they've not chosen the easiest route on this occasion. Is this a form of putting the bins out? Bee-eaters hunt here, amongst those champion dung spreaders, cattle. It will turn out that the whole survival of this potentially rich region depends on certain vital ingredients, and has done for thousands of years. Food and drink, feast and famine, winning and losing. Now eventually it's getting through that something needs to be done in this modern age, because changes now affect much of the planet. But how much here in the Mediterranean? Often aside those sheep again. And of course dogs too. Plus shepherd. Seems to be some sort of game. So is this another tradition that may change at the approach of all things electronic? This dog is not that interested.
Je viens chez toi. Regarde-nous. Oh, regarde.
Signs of nature moving in. Prickly pear cactus on ruined houses. Home for a lizard and its prey. Slate roofs turn green, and as leaves and flowers flourish, especially where the sun gets through. And it's the sun in the Mediterranean that has become so famous, not to say notorious. Such as the power of nature. And here's another. Water, as it flows from the melting snows of the mountains through lush forests, it attracts human visitors who can enjoy pure, clean water, something on the list of basic human needs, something to make the most of. She's into it too. So is a frog, a local, not a tourist. The tourist is the one with the sunscreen. That's a whole another thing these days. It all depends on the weather, the climate, and possibly how tourists got there. Not in the local tram, very economical compared with a jet plane. What are the barriers to that? Well, none, but that may change, and the weather is part of the problem. By now the whole planet and some politicians have noticed that the unprecedented, great word, upheaval, storms, floods, droughts, too hot, too cold, and so on. For some it's fun. But if you depend on the beach for your business, this is a sad scene. If you're a cold-blooded tortoise, this is better. But it can get too hot, as happened in Greece in 2023. After deadly fires in Rhodes, Corfu and elsewhere, the government refunded tourists later on. And far away in Chile, in South America in 2024, blazes claimed over 100 lives and threatened hundreds of homes, caused by forest fires, summer heat waves and droughts. Wild winds too, and kites too. A state of emergency was declared. Well, what's going on? Here's another kite with feathers on. A wide wingspan and flexible forked tail enable it to survey a changing landscape, which could offer something worth checking out, dangerous as it might seem to be. Down there is a load of rubbish. It's yet another way people are changing the place. All sorts of plastics are dumped there, some toxic. At the same time, the land is being man-made using the all-powerful plough to shape the landscape. To produce the classic favourite for both tourists and locals. The grapevine had originated in forests as a climber. Today it's part of a huge hospitality industry that stretches the length of the Mediterranean Sea, which hides some great treasures. That's if you can find them and look after them. Like it says on the map by the boat, this is a nature reserve where areas are protected from fishing. And fishing turns out to be one of the biggest human threats in the Mediterranean. An example of a predator overwhelming its prey. Different species inhabit different depths. Flat rays on the bottom plus tail spine as a weapon. Near the sunlit surface, a jellyfish drifts by. Or descends to that fertile sea floor with seagrass, a flowering plant. The divers meet another jellyfish, not a fish at all. But further down below is a fish, a serious one, a moray eel with teeth. The head of the sea slug is decorated by two sorts of horns. And a sea urchin hides the eyes, tentacles and siphon of an octopus until it gives itself up and heads off towards the dive boat. This turns out to be a good place for diving, whether you're a bird or a person. Fishing can be very wasteful. so-called bycatch. It may look interesting, in fact a tourist attraction, but some species are already on the slippery slope of overfishing, with little thought for the future. That's happened to sharks worldwide, which have suffered from misleading reputations and the fin trade for soup. What a waste of an extraordinary ancient creature. So what's happened to this mix of ancient and modern? Who's winning or losing? There is the livestock, the agriculture, the wildlife, the people, then, now and next. There should be limits and quotas for fishing, or both the fish and the fishermen will become extinct. The loss of a potentially huge resource. A lot of money is at stake, tourism of all sorts. But can wildlife and fishing survive alongside it all? It seems it can. Pesca turismo, all shapes and sizes.
Guarda, io vorrei che per me guarda, è così il calcio, cancella, non ne voglio manco più sentire.
È uno schifo, dai, è uno schifo. Ah, sono i come Dio, quelle canocchiali che non chiedo. Ma andiamo se vostro giocare qui.
Tipo sta conca, guarda che bel pesce.
Oh,
È bello, è vivo.
excelente.
Va bene? Postajci, dai.
No, è giusto.
Dai.
Capito? Due sapori, manco comprare.
Sì, ho messo troppo caldo.
Che mi da regiono sarto, vero?
This is a time of change which affects everyone's lives, whether it's Italy or India, the Antarctic, China or Russia, Australia or Africa, both North and South America. Climate changes everywhere, up there, and of course the wildlife is affected too. Global warming may sound attractive, but less so when it causes droughts, famine and big fires. It can also cause skin cancer, melanoma, potentially spreading to be deadly, despite lots of sunscreen in all the right places. Out on the beach on Mallorca is probably the wrong place. But the crunch is that her possible problem with her skin is caused by how they got to the Med. It's a fact that the tourist industry, especially the airlines, don't want to discuss. By burning fossil fuels, the aviation business is adding to global heating, a direct connection with our health later back home. Modern lifestyles, be they frequent foreign holidays or sugary drinks, are linked here just offshore, threatening an ancient kind of reptile. It's a turtle minding its own business. It's lost a flipper. Another one's luckier. Who's watching who? And again, fishing meets tourism, which now spreads far and wide around the shores of the Mediterranean. Some 4,000 die each year in fishing nets, but now cheap, green, flashing warning LED lights reduce the mortality. A bright idea indeed. It could be low rise or high rise. High rise could be crowded. Could be noisy. Ish. Do hope you've checked out. This is an attempt to discourage mass tourism, and it's turned some places into ghost towns. Locations may become big gambles. For whatever reason, this beach in the wilds wasn't. Yes, right by the sea, and now with the wrong kind of swimming pool and the hotel looking like a bomb's hit it. The only guest here now is another tortoise exploring, which was no doubt a nice lawn. So how much wild beach is left? How much is built on already? How rare a sight is this, taken in the past? Or this, backed by greenery and a hoopoe's nest site. Hopefully to be continued by replanting, as explained to visitors using the tortoise as a guide. That's if they've not gone to autograph an empty beach. Fred and Eric were here, and so were many more, apparently. having fun, getting serious tans. Of course, the sun does much more than that, even to the extent of skin cancer if you're not careful. It drives all living systems on land and beneath the sea. It's vital to agriculture of all sorts, food and drink, much enjoyed by summer visitors to the Mediterranean, from insects to tourists. Though they might just be at risk, as we'll see later, with this plate full of mussels. On the Osprey's menu is another product of sun and sea, fish. After a lively night out, they're enjoying a quieter visit to a nature reserve, which so far has been protected for its wildlife. Fish, birds, goats and dolphins. Increasingly these days, such wild places are under pressure to be developed. It will only be strong legal and enforced protection that will keep them as they are, and for future generations. Eden's forever, perhaps. Let's hope so. Like this place, it's a frog heaven. You might be lucky and catch a glimpse of a purple gallinule, a real reed eater with those huge feet. And a loud voice. These paddle with their feet and filter the proceeds for delivery later. Flamingos too like these wetlands, and they need all the help they can get. But do the local people care? Science may help explain its value, at least for all that wildlife out there. In the Med, such places attract developers, resulting later in lots more people, tourists. We'll see this in Corfu, where they're still counting the cost of forest fires, probably caused by global warming. The Greek government has offered to reimburse those affected. Could this paradise be lost? Yes, we will see what happens. It could go either way. How good or bad might tourism turn out to be? It could become as crowded as Mallorca at peak season, but parts of it are protected for nature, where the local lizards lounge about getting fed in the process. Most come here by plane, don't forget. At the other end of Mallorca is an amazing example of good news winning over potentially bad. What was a wonderful wild wilderness nearly wasn't, or isn't, because there had been a huge development plan to turn this large wetland into a city of the lakes. Canals were dug, roads and shops were started, then it was nearly all stopped and was allowed to become the famous nature reserve called La Albufera. Hiding in the extensive reed beds are lenses, fish and frogs, and a little bittern on the hunt. They may have come a long way for these rare glimpses of both little and large bitterns. It's ecotourism. Walking and cycling make this a very popular change from the noisy, busy resorts. La Albufera is a great asset and an important example for the whole of the Mediterranean. Good news, but offshore, where other tourists go, there's bad news. There used to be Mediterranean monk seals rearing their pups in secret caves. Now they've gone, only visible on a postcard and in archive footage. And ironically, their abandoned home, caused by intrusive tourism, is still an attraction.
Here are the seal caves. These caves, seal caves. There, stay every day.
Not today, not any day. Only by protecting the monk seals and their home can these very rare mermaids make a comeback. But just see what can be done with a much less cute, less cuddly species up in the mountains of Mallorca. Black vultures are kept in captivity before release into other parts of Europe where they've been shot and poisoned in the past. Vultures are called cleaners from the skies. They do a very useful job. In the freshwater by the town is something that needs attention. Sewage. Mussels are filter feeders, so it makes sense to keep their home clean. Tourists hope so too. And crested coots, sun-loving and weed-loving, here in another conservation project. Literally above all this, whether it's an empty beach or a crowded one, is a factor that's going to affect the whole of planet Earth and of course the business of tourism, especially aviation. The sun. By burning more and more fossil fuels, global warming will be increased. Of course, there has been talk of sustainable aviation fuel called SAF. Wind power, sunshine are one thing, but making enough SAF from biological waste is pie in the sky at the moment. To fuel the world's planes would require a massive production, and nothing is in place or even planned. A single test transatlantic flight has been regarded as a bit of a publicity stunt and is no way applicable to the reality of what's so often called pent-up demand. Recently, in March 2024, a Dutch court ruled that KLM, the Netherlands flag carrier airline, misled customers with an advertising company aimed at improving the company's environmental image. KLM had lied, given that all aviation is a significant source of emissions, was the conclusion. So, where do we go from here?